Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since the 2019 season. And we are here once again to carry on with you to another offseason together. As always, you can always find our 100% free 24/7 boots on the ground coverage of the Jacksonville Jaguars when you follow us on social media such as Facebook and Twitter every single day at Jaguars on SI. You can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. Once again, I am your host and your beat reporter. Today, I want to talk about three training camp battles that, to me, are going to be the most fascinating over the course of the 2025 NFL training camp season for the Jaguars. Of course, training camp will start toward the end of July, so we still have a little under a month until training camp kicks off for the Jaguars and the rest of the NFL. But as always, training camp is the battleground for where teams and players really determine their roles and how the season will play out for their 53-man rosters. Now, to me, I'd say the absolute most important position battle is that right tackle between Anton Harrison and Chuma Edoga. Now, I believe, and I wrote an article stating this, that Anton Harrison should be the answer at right tackle this year. I think that Anton's ceiling is just in such a high place that if they can get him to meet his potential, if they can develop him and help him develop his consistency, which they have said has been his biggest drawback over the last several seasons as they have reviewed the film on him, then if you can get him to hit, that's absolutely massive for the rest of the offense, for the offensive line, and really for the team in general. Because Anton has a special skill set. I think in many ways that very easily could be why, the Jaguars have shown, I wouldn't say frustration, but why they have shown clearly where they stand in terms of where they want to see Anton improve over the course of training camp in the regular season. They see in there that he can be a terrific player. Offensive line coach Sean Sherritt told Jacksonville Jaguars on SI at the end of OTAs that Anton is one of the most athletic tackles he's ever been around in his life. And just the sheer upside that Anton brings with him, if you can get him close to meeting that potential, it can be a game changer. Chuma Edoga, though, probably has a little bit more consistency. He has more experience. He's a veteran guy. He also has some versatility. He can play inside, outside. He has done it before. It appeared over the course of the offseason program that, Edoga will be given a legitimate chance, to battle for the job. And it's nothing against Edoga or his skill set or what he brings to the table. I just think that he makes sense as a backup right tackle, as a potential swing tackle option. And then with Harrison, to me, just the best path moving forward is give him another go at it, see really where he is by the end of the season, where you want to take it from there. And if you need to find another right tackle, then you have your answer. But to me, his upside is worth the potential questions that you have to ask over the course of the season, training camp, and of the developmental process. Now, I think on the other side of that, there's certainly some questions of, is Harrison's up and down play a potential impedance for the offensive line scheme? I don't think it's to that level. I think, again, it's more maybe a frustrating thing for coaches because you see such the high peaks and you wonder why it's not every down dominance. But I don't think it's at the point where he's having such massive lows that he's just completely getting in the offense's way from taking a step forward. If that was the case, then I do think Chuma Edoga would be able to stake a better claim to the position of right tackle. But I simply do not find that to be the case when it comes to Anton Harrison. Now, another training camp battle to watch, of course, is simply the running back position. What are the Jacksonville Jaguars going to do at running back? To me, it's a fantastic question. Travis Etienne obviously has the experience. Definitely seems like Liam Cohen wants to at least present the idea that they think that there's something that they can do, with his skill set. And to me, as I've said before, I just think the most logical outcome when it comes to ETN question is that he is on the roster this season and potentially and most probably hits free agency next year. But the Jaguars can still get plenty of use out of him. Cohen mentioned design touches, jet sweep, screens, stuff like that. He just has the best overall, I guess you could say, game at this point amongst the running backs. But he definitely has some competition. Tank Bigsby, if they go with a gap scheme and just want to get downhill, Tank Bigsby can be a force. He forced a lot of missed tackles last year. His explosive rate and his ability to just create those game-changing runs didn't exactly sustain throughout the season. But I find that to be more the case and the fault of the offensive line than I do with him specifically. So ultimately what I have to say is I think Tank Bigsby has a chance to challenge Travis Etienne depending on what kind of setup this running scheme and offensive line in general have. Now, on the other hand, Bayshaw Tuden, LaQuint Allen, 2 day 3 rookies added to the mix. I really like Allen's overall game, what he can bring in terms of, passing game value as a pass protector, as a pass catcher. He looked incredibly smooth catching the ball of the offseason program. And then Tuden, he can be a home run hitter from anywhere in the field. I think if they can get to a point where they're not as concerned with his fumbles or anything like that, you could see his responsibilities kind of increase more and more. And finally, I'd have to say the cornerback battle. How are things going to shake up opposite Tyson Campbell? I think that's a very fair and legitimate question to ask in Jacksonville right now. And it's kind of been a question for the last couple seasons. They added Darius Williams in 2022, kind of toyed with it a little bit, played him in the slot some. He wasn't really a slot cornerback, though. Once they moved him to the outside at the end of the 2022 season, he played really well in 2023, had a career year. They had to move on because of contract issues, and he didn't fit the scheme. He went, I believe, back to Los Angeles last season. But he was really the last running mate for Tyson Campbell who was able to be consistent. So who's it going to be this year? Jordan Lewis, they added, obviously, in the offseason to be, a major piece of the secondary. Right now, that if you had to define it, looks like a guy who is very much so starting in the nickel spot. Maybe he gets reps outside over the course of the season. But if you're looking at other guys that compete for snaps outside of him, you obviously have Travis Hunter. We'll see just how much defense he's playing, etc. You obviously have Jarian Jones, who had a fantastic rookie season. A little bit of a transition for him to a zone defense after he's played so much man throughout his career. And then, of course, you have Buster Brown, who once again just had a stellar offseason program. So a lot of questions about the cornerback position in terms of who will actually get that number 2 role. I wouldn't say questions of do they have enough guys, because they have a lot of guys. They have several people who are fighting for snaps at that position, as it stands today. The question is, will they be able to find the right kind of mixture that they are looking for heading into the 2025 season? Because cornerback was a major issue for the Jaguars last season. Buster Brown flashed a good bit, but outside of him, Jarian Jones was obviously a very good nickel corner. He believes that he can move from the nickel to even doing more so outside. He said after the season, I believe, to Jamal St. Cyr, how he played outside a lot last year and how he went to the coaching staff about playing more inside. Didn't really happen, and how this coaching staff seems prepared to let him do so. So definitely, to me, those are the 3 biggest training camp battles to watch. We will see over the course of the next several weeks and months just how things shake out. But with training camp getting closer and closer each day, it is never too soon to start thinking about how the 2025 Jacksonville Jaguars might shape up. Thank you guys, as always, for joining me. Please make sure you like, subscribe, review, follow, whatever you got to do on all podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify when you find us at the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. And don't forget to find us on YouTube at Sports Videos on SI.